A lord gallops across an open field, his gaze fixed on the sky where a falcon circles like a living jewel. This was medieval falconry, the ultimate sport of kings, a breathtaking dance of power and precision between human and bird. By the end of this journey, you will understand the secret language of the tools that made this partnership possible. We will uncover why a falcon wore a tiny leather hood and how a set of silver bells could mean the difference between a triumphant return and a lost fortune. What hidden stories do you think are woven into the leather and metal of a falconer's kit? That intricate dance in the sky depended entirely on a carefully crafted collection of tools. The falconer's kit was a symphony of leather and metal, where every piece had a singular, non-negotiable purpose. Think of it not as a set of restraints, but as a language. It was how the falconer spoke to the bird, and how the bird in its own way replied. For control and connection, there were the jesses, the leash, and the swivel, the fundamental tethers that kept the partnership grounded. For the bird's state of mind and its training, there was the hood and the bewits, tools of calm and identification. For the critical moment of the hunt's return, there was the lure and the bells, a combination of sound and reward. And for the falconer's own safety and role, there was the heavy glove and the cadge, the portable perch. Each item was a vital link in a chain of trust, and to understand one is to start understanding them all. Those short, sturdy straps of leather you might have noticed on a falcon's legs are called jesses. Think of them not as shackles, but as the fundamental handshake between human and bird. Crafted from the softest deerskin or supple calfskin, their purpose was singular yet profound, to give the falconer a secure and gentle handle on a creature of the air. Without this simple anchor, the entire partnership would have been impossible. A falconer could not safely carry their bird, nor could they prevent a startled falcon from launching into a dangerous, uncontrolled flight. The jesses were the first point of contact, a constant physical reminder of their bond, but this essential tool had to adapt to different settings. Inside the sheltered mews, where the bird lived, the falcon wore what were known as mews jesses. These were longer, allowing the bird a comfortable range of movement on its perch. When it was time to venture out into the field for the hunt, the falconer would carefully swap them for field jesses. These were significantly shorter, designed with one critical purpose: to minimize any risk of the leather snagging on a branch or bush during the thrilling chaos of the chase. In that simple act of changing the straps, the falconer was speaking a silent language of care and foresight, preparing their partner for the freedom and the perils of the hunt to come. That secure handshake of leather, the jesses, required one final, critical element: a lock. Without it, the entire system of trust would unravel in an instant. The solution was deceptively simple and utterly brilliant: a knot. But this was no ordinary knot. The most advanced system was known as the Falconry jess, named for the man who perfected it. Here, the strap of leather itself held the secret. A small, precise slit was cut near the end of the jess. The falconer would then carefully thread the longer end of the strap back through this self-made opening, creating a permanent, non-slip loop that encircled the bird's leg. Why was this such a monumental step forward? In older designs, a simple knot could tighten over time, the leather biting into the falcon's leg like a slowly closing trap, causing pain and even injury. The Falconry loop, however, was self-adjusting and secure. It held firm without constricting, respecting the delicate anatomy of the bird with every beat of its wings. Tying these jesses was an art in itself, a ritual of care performed by the falconer. The loop had to be just loose enough to allow for healthy circulation, yet snug enough that a powerful thrust of those mighty wings could not shake it free. A poorly tied jess was a sentence of discomfort, or worse, a lost bird. So in that quiet moment before the hunt, as the falconer's fingers worked the soft leather, they were not just fastening a strap. They were performing the final check on a lifeline, a testament to a partnership built on meticulous detail. But the jesses were only the beginning of the connection. They needed something to tether them to the falconer's world, a link that allowed for movement but not escape. From that secure loop on the falcon's leg stretched a lifeline, the leash. This was not a chain of captivity. but a tether of trust. A long, elegant cord of braided leather or the finest silk connecting the jesses to the falconer's world. The material itself was a choice of purpose. Braided leather offered immense strength, able to withstand the sudden, powerful jerk of a large goshawk. Silk, on the other hand, was prized for its incredible lightness and flexibility, a gentle yet unbreakable thread for the more delicate falcons. Its role was one of beautiful contradiction. The leash provided a crucial safety measure, preventing a trained but not yet fully reliable bird from making a final, fatal flight into the unknown. Yet it also granted a measured freedom. When the bird was perched on its wooden block out in the field or resting on the portable cadge, the leash allowed it to shift, preen, and look about, maintaining its dignity and comfort. It was the physical expression of a promise, the promise that this connection was temporary, a guide rope until the bird itself chose to return. The length of the leash was a carefully considered decision, giving just enough line for the bird to feel a semblance of independence, but never so much that it could become entangled and panic. In every moment, the leash whispered a simple truth: you are still mine to protect, and I am still yours to trust. But a bird on a leash is a creature of dynamic motion, capable of spinning and turning in an instant. How did this single cord withstand such constant twisting without becoming a tangled, dangerous mess? The answer to that constant twisting was a small, brilliant piece of engineering: the swivel. This tiny metal pivot, often forged from brass or iron, was the unsung hero of the falconer's kit. Picture two simple rings connected at a central point, each one free to spin independently. One ring was fastened securely to the ends of the jesses, while the other held the leash. This was its genius. Every time the falcon turned its head, shuffled on the glove, or adjusted its wings, the swivel absorbed that motion. The rings would rotate smoothly against each other, allowing the bird a full range of movement while the leash itself remained perfectly straight and untangled. Without this clever device, the leather cord would have quickly wound itself into a tight, unforgiving knot. A tangled leash was far more than an inconvenience. It could shorten abruptly, jerking the bird from its perch and causing panic. A panicked bird struggles, and in its struggle, it could break its own delicate legs against the unyielding jesses, or damage its precious flight feathers. The swivel was therefore not just a convenience, it was a vital safeguard. It was a quiet promise of safety, ensuring that the tether of trust would never become a trap. This small pivot of metal granted the falcon a crucial piece of its freedom back, the freedom to move without fear. And as the bird sat hooded and calm on the falconer's fist, it was the gentle, metallic whisper of the swivel that spoke of a partnership in perfect balance. But how did the falconer convince a creature of such fierce independence to remain so calm and focused amidst the excitement of the hunt? The secret lies not in a restraint, but in a tool of darkness. This tool of darkness was the hood, a masterpiece of leathercraft that served a deeply psychological purpose. Its primary function was not to blind the bird, but to grant it peace. By enveloping the falcon's head in a snug, comfortable darkness, the hood effectively switched off the world. For a creature with such incredibly sharp eyesight, the constant flood of visual information, from a fluttering leaf to a passing shadow, could be overwhelming. In that state of high alert, a bird would burn through its energy, baiting from the fist in a frantic attempt to flee perceived threats. The hood created a sanctuary of calm, a controlled environment where the bird could conserve its strength and focus entirely on the falconer. It was the difference between sitting in a quiet, dark room and standing in the middle of a bustling, noisy market. The falcon, in its hooded state, was serene, composed, and ready for the task ahead. But placing a leather cap over the head of a wild-hearted hunter was an act that demanded the highest level of skill and trust. The process of hooding a bird was a delicate ritual in itself, a slow and patient dance. A skilled falconer would never force the hood on. Instead, they would use gentle, consistent movements, allowing the bird to become accustomed to the touch of the leather, the gradual dimming of the light. The bird had to learn that the hood was not a punishment, but a precursor to something positive, like being carried into the field or receiving a morsel of food. Each successful hooding reinforced a silent agreement. The falconer proved they could be trusted with the bird's most vulnerable sense, its sight, and the bird, in accepting the hood, demonstrated its growing reliance on its human partner. This was not an act of domination, but one of mutual understanding. The finest hoods were works of art, molded perfectly to an individual bird's head, often decorated with a tiny plume of feathers. They were personal, bespoke items, as unique as the partnership they served. And while the hood managed the bird's mind, another small piece of equipment served as its public identity. The hood was far from a one-size-fits-all piece of equipment. Its shape and style spoke volumes about its origin and the status of its owner. Two distinct designs stood out in the falconer's world. The Dutch hood was a study in elegant restraint. It rose from the bird's head in a tall, sculpted profile, almost like a miniature leather helmet. This design was not just for show. Its high crown and carefully shaped openings around the beak and eyes gave the falcon ample space, preventing the sensitive leather from touching and irritating those crucial areas. It was a design born of pure, refined function. In stark contrast was the Arabian hood. This style was often a masterpiece of ornamentation, crafted from the finest, supplest leather and frequently dyed in rich colors. The most distinctive feature was the elegant tassel that dangled from its peak. This tassel was more than mere decoration. It served a practical purpose for the falconer, providing a convenient handle for gently placing or removing the hood from the bird's head. The leather itself was often beautifully tooled with intricate patterns, a clear reflection of the wealth and prestige of the noble who owned it. Crafting any hood was a patient art. A maker would take a single piece of softened leather and painstakingly mold it over a wooden form shaped to a specific bird's head. As the leather dried, it would harden into that perfect, custom fit. Sometimes, a tiny, decorative plume of feathers was added to the top, a final flourish of pride. So when you see a painting of a medieval lord with his falcon, look closely at that tiny leather cap. Its shape and decoration tell a silent story of geography, of craftsmanship, and of the immense value placed on the bird that wore it. But a hooded bird was a silent partner. How did a falconer identify their prized companion in a crowded mews, or find them if they were lost in the field? While the hood managed the falcon's sight, another set of tools was designed for sound. Tied just above the jesses on the bird's legs were the bewits. These were even thinner, more delicate straps of leather, and their singular, vital purpose was to serve as an anchor for one of the most important pieces of equipment in the entire kit, the bell. This small, spherical instrument, often crafted from hammered brass or even silver for the wealthiest nobles, was not for decoration. It was a lifeline made of sound. When a falcon pursued its quarry into a thicket of thorns or landed in a sea of tall grass after a successful strike, it could vanish from sight in an instant. The falconer, on foot or horseback, would be left scanning an impenetrable landscape. In that moment of potential loss, the bell became their only guide. Its constant, gentle ringing with every movement of the bird's leg created an audible beacon, leading the falconer through the undergrowth directly to their partner and the prize. But what happened when multiple falconers were flying their birds in the same field? A chorus of identical bells would create utter confusion. The solution was as elegant as it was practical. Each bell was tuned to have its own distinct pitch, a unique auditory signature. A master falconer, having spent countless hours with their bird, could pick out that specific chime from 100 others. The high, clear ring of a silver bell might call through the woods for one lord, while the deeper, resonant tone of a brass bell answered for another. This was not merely a tool for recovery, it was a continuous, rhythmic affirmation of the bond. With every step the falcon took, whether perched or in pursuit, the bell sang a quiet song of connection, a promise that even when out of sight, the bird was never truly lost. That unique chime of the bell was a call to be answered, but the falcon needed a powerful reason to heed it. This reason was the lure, the single most important tool for communication between falconer and bird. Far from a simple piece of equipment, The lure was a powerful psychological anchor, a promise of reward that could call a hunter back from the thrill of the chase. Its common form was a carefully designed dummy, often shaped like a small bird or a pair of wings, padded with soft material and just heavy enough to be felt when thrown. The key to its magic was what was tied to it: fresh, enticing pieces of meat. From this central body trailed long leather cords, allowing the falconer to swing it in a wide, compelling circle. The sight and sound of this whirling target became the falcon's entire focus. Training began on the ground, with the falconer teaching the bird that flying to the lure meant a guaranteed meal. The falcon learned to land on the padded surface, holding it down with its talons while it fed. This association between the lure and food was the bedrock of the entire partnership. Even after a successful hunt, when the falcon had struck down a duck or a pheasant, its natural instinct would be to stay and feast. The falconer could not simply walk over and take the prize, risking a defensive bite or a startled flight. Instead, they would cast out the lure, offering a trade. The bird, conditioned over countless training sessions, would see this familiar, whirling signal and be compelled to abandon its hard-won kill for the certain reward waiting on the falconer's fist. It was a remarkable act of trust and discipline, a testament to how deeply the lure's meaning was ingrained. This padded decoy was not a trick, but a symbol of a bond forged in mutual benefit, a guarantee that returning to the human always held the greatest reward. While the lure promised a reward, the final act of trust happened when the bird returned to land on a heavily armored sleeve. This was the falconer's gauntlet, a shield of leather that made the physical partnership possible. It was not a simple glove, crafted from the thickest buckskin or robust cowhide. It was a gauntlet in the truest sense, often extending all the way to the falconer's elbow. Its single vital purpose was to create a safe, stable platform, a living perch that could withstand the powerful grip of razor-sharp talons. Without this protection, a single nervous clench from the bird could slice deep into a falconer's hand and arm, turning a moment of triumph into one of pain and panic. The design was a masterclass in practical defense. The leather was often doubled or even tripled in key areas, particularly across the palm and along the forearm where the bird's feet would naturally rest. There were no seams on the inside where a talon might catch and tear, and the entire piece was supple enough to allow the falconer a full range of motion, yet stiff enough to feel like a solid branch to the bird. This was not a piece of armor for battle, but for a delicate, daily dance of trust. The weight and style of the gauntlet spoke directly to the power of the bird it was meant to host. A noble flying a small, agile merlin or kestrel might wear a lighter, more flexible glove, offering protection without unnecessary bulk. But for the master of the hunt flying a formidable goshawk or a majestic peregrine falcon, the glove was a serious piece of equipment, thick and unyielding. And then there was the eagle glove. This was a truly massive gauntlet, sometimes reinforced with plates of bone or metal sewn between the layers of leather. An eagle's grip, capable of crushing the spine of a deer, demanded nothing less than a miniature fortress for the arm. The moment a bird landed, settling its weight and tightening its grasp, the falconer could feel its power transmitted through the leather, a constant, physical reminder of the wild force they held at their command. While the gauntlet protected a single fist, transporting an entire collection of these avian hunters required something far more grand. This was the task of the cadge, the falcon's mobile throne room. Picture a simple yet sturdy rectangular frame of wood, carried on the shoulders of a junior falconer known as the cadger. From this portable perch, a lord's most prized hawks and falcons would sit in a solemn, feathered row, their leather leashes dangling. The scene was a powerful, moving spectacle of status. Each bird, hooded and serene, represented a significant investment of time, money, and skill. A cadge bearing a goshawk, a peregrine, and a merlin was not just a mode of transport. It was a public declaration of a nobleman's wealth and his mastery over the natural world. The cadger himself, often a young boy learning the art, moved with a slow, deliberate grace. Every step had to be measured and smooth, for a sudden jolt could startle the entire line of birds into a frantic, tangled panic. His careful progress across the field was a silent drumroll before the main event, building anticipation for the hunt to come. This humble wooden frame, borne on human shoulders, was the stage upon which a lord's prestige was paraded for all to see. The cadge carried the birds to the hunt, but every falcon required a sanctuary to return to. This was the mews, the dedicated home where the partnership between human and bird was nurtured away from the field. Far more than a simple shed, a proper mews was a carefully designed environment built for the physical and mental well of its precious occupant. It had to be a place of absolute calm, a quiet, sheltered building that protected the bird from the stresses of the outside world. Inside, the most important feature was the perch. This was not a simple branch, but a rounded, padded block designed to be gentle on the bird's feet, preventing the painful sores known as bumblefoot that could end a falcon's career. Good ventilation was crucial, allowing fresh air to circulate without creating a chilling draft, while a shallow pan of clean water provided essential bathing facilities. For a creature that relies on pristine feathers for flight, the ability to bathe and preen was not a luxury, it was a necessity for survival. The entire space was a testament to the falconer's understanding that a healthy, content bird was a cooperative and effective hunter. But this ideal was not always the reality. A neglected mews told a very different story. A damp, drafty building led to respiratory illness and ruined feathers. A cramped or dirty perch caused chronic foot infections. Without a quiet atmosphere, a bird lived in a state of constant anxiety, its spirit broken not by the hood, but by its own home. The difference between a proper mews and a poor one was the difference between a jewel-toned hunter at the peak of its power and a listless, injured creature. The quality of this shelter spoke volumes about the falconer, revealing whether they saw their bird as a true partner or merely a living tool. A bird of prey is a carnivore, a creature of pure protein. Its diet was never an afterthought, but a precise science managed with a set of simple yet vital tools. The most basic of these was the feeding block. This was not a bowl or a dish, but a clean, flat stone or a smooth piece of hardwood placed on the floor of the mews. The falconer would place the daily ration of fresh meat directly onto this clean surface. Why not just toss it on the ground? A bird eating from the earth would inevitably pick up grit, dirt, and parasites, all of which could lead to debilitating illness. The feeding block was a barrier against filth, a dedicated dinner table that preserved the hunter's health. But the diet itself held a more profound secret. The meat offered was not always lean and clean. A responsible falconer would deliberately feed their bird whole prey, like a small rabbit or a pigeon, or at the very least, meat still wrapped in the skin and feathers of its natural kill. This provided the bird with something crucial called casting. Casting is the indigestible matter, the fur and the feathers, that the bird cannot process. You might think this is wasteful, even harmful, but the opposite is true. This roughage acts like a cleansing brush for the bird's digestive system. A day or two after consuming a cast, the falcon would regurgitate a small, compact pellet, neatly packed with all the fur, feathers, and tiny bone fragments. This process, known as casting up, was essential. It scrubbed the bird's crop and gizzard clean, preventing blockages and ensuring its entire digestive tract remained healthy. A falcon that could not cast was a falcon in distress, its body slowly poisoned by its own meals. So in that simple act of providing a furry piece of meat on a clean stone, the falconer was speaking the language of biology itself, demonstrating a deep understanding that to care for the hunter, you must care for the whole of its wild nature. Even the most perfectly crafted feather could snap in an instant. A sudden gust against a branch, a clumsy landing, or a moment of bad luck could leave a falcon with a broken primary flight feather, crippling its ability to hunt and fly with precision. For a noble, this was a disaster. A grounded falcon was a useless falcon. But medieval falconry possessed a remarkable solution, a delicate surgical procedure known as imping. The tool that made this possible was the imping needle, a small, sharpened rod of metal, often brass or iron. This was not a tool of brute force, but one of finesse. The process began with a donor feather, carefully saved from the bird's previous molt. The falconer would take this intact feather and the damaged one, and with a razor-sharp blade, cut both shafts at precisely the same angle. The goal was to create two perfect, matching ends. Then came the needle. The falconer would gently insert the fine point into the soft, pithy core of the feather shaft still attached to the bird. This was a moment of supreme focus, pushing just deep enough to anchor the needle without splitting the delicate keratin tube. Next, a special adhesive, often a glue made from boiled animal hides, was applied to the exposed end of the needle and the hollow end of the donor feather. With a steady hand, the donor feather was then slid onto the protruding needle, its angled cut meeting perfectly with the angled cut on the living shaft. The glue set, binding the two pieces into one. When done correctly, the repair was nearly invisible and perfectly functional. The bird, once grounded, could now fly as if the break had never happened. This was more than simple repair, it was a profound act of conservation. A falconer would not simply discard a bird for a minor injury. Through the art of imping, they demonstrated a deep respect for their partner, investing time and incredible skill to restore its very freedom. This tiny metal needle was a testament to their commitment, ensuring that a single moment of misfortune would not end a legendary partnership. While the lure was a promise of food, the whistle was a command of the air itself. This small, often silver instrument was the falconer's voice over impossible distances, a precise acoustic signal that could cut through wind and weather. Each bird was typically trained to respond to a unique whistle, its pitch and tone as familiar to the falcon as its own cry. A sharp, high-pitched series of tweets might signal the bird to launch from the fist and gain altitude. A lower, more insistent trill could be the command to turn and pursue a new quarry sighted by the falconer. And a long, steady, repeating note was the most critical sound of all, the universal call for recall, telling the bird to break off the hunt and return to the glove. This was not a one-way signal. The falconer had to learn the bird's state of mind from its response, or lack thereof. A well-trained falcon would react instantly, its actions a direct echo of the sound. A moment's hesitation might mean the bird was too far away, too focused on potential prey, or simply testing the boundaries of its training. The whistle created a conversation without words, a deep communication built on thousands of repetitions. The falcon learned that obeying that specific sound always led to reward and safety, forging a bond as strong as any leather tether. In the vast expanse of the hunt, when the bird was a mere speck against the clouds, the falconer's only true control was the breath in their lungs and the singular, commanding sound it produced. That singular conversation between falconer and bird was set against a much grander stage. A full medieval hunt was a symphony of coordinated movement, a spectacle where the falcon played just one vital part in an ensemble of human, horse, and hound. Imagine the scene unfolding across the open countryside. The lord and his guests are mounted on powerful horses, their height and speed providing the mobility needed to follow the swift drama in the sky. But the hunt truly began on the ground with the dogs. Lean, lightning-fast greyhounds were held on tight leashes, ready to be slipped the moment a hare was sighted, their explosive speed a perfect complement to the falcon's stoop from above. For game hiding in dense brush, a different kind of hound was essential. Spaniels and other flushing dogs would crash through the undergrowth, their excited barking and relentless pursuit startling pheasants or partridges into the air. This was the critical moment. As the panicked game burst from cover, the falconer would cast off their bird. The falcon, having waited with hooded patience, now had a clear target launched right before it. This was not a competition between the hound and the bird, but a flawless partnership. The dog's role was to create the opportunity, and the falcon's role was to seize it in a breathtaking display of aerial power. The entire operation relied on a deep, unspoken understanding between every participant. The horse had to stand steady as the falcon launched and returned. The dog had to be trained to work alongside the bird without seeing it as prey itself, and the falconer had to command this entire chaotic ballet, their attention divided between the horizon, their hounds, and the feathered hunters circling above. This was the pinnacle of the noble's art, a public demonstration of their ability to orchestrate the raw forces of nature into a single, harmonious, and devastatingly effective hunt. Every piece of equipment in the falconer's kit whispered a story of status, written in the quality of its leather and the gleam of its metal. The very act of flying a bird of prey was a privilege reserved by law for the nobility, a living banner of their elevated rank. But the details of their gear shouted this truth even louder. A common knight might own a serviceable set of jesses and a plain leather hood, but a duke or a prince, his falcon would be tethered by jesses of the softest, most supple deerskin, dyed in rich colors. His swivel would not be a simple iron ring, but a polished brass pivot, perhaps even engraved with his family crest or inlaid with a fleck of silver. The ultimate display was the hood itself. While a Dutch hood was functional, an ornate Arabian hood, tooled with intricate patterns and tipped with a silken tassel, was a miniature masterpiece. It declared that its owner possessed not only wealth, but access to the most skilled craftsmen, the ones who could turn a working tool into a jewel for a bird. Even the bells carried this message. The clear, high ring of a silver bell was more than a practical beacon. It was an audible signal of immense riches, a chiming announcement that this bird belonged to someone who could afford to hang silver from a hunter's legs. In a society where your place was fixed and displayed for all to see, the falcon on your fist and the gear that held it were your walking credentials. They were a mobile, breathing proof that you stood at the very top of the world, commanding not just people, but the untamed sky itself. The weight of a German knight's falconry gear was a direct reflection of his world. His glove was not just thick, it was a fortress of reinforced leather, built to handle the powerful goshawks prized for hunting the dense, dark forests of Central Europe. His jesses were cut from the toughest boar hide, and his swivels were simple, heavy iron rings, forged for function over beauty. This was equipment for a rugged, practical partnership, where a bird's escape into the thick woods could mean its permanent loss. But travel south to the sun-drenched courts of Sicily or the caliphates of Al-Andalus, and you would find a completely different philosophy. Here, falconry was as much about artistry as it was about the hunt. A noble's glove might be crafted from the softest, most supple crimson cordovan leather, embroidered with threads of gold. The hoods were not merely shaped, they were sculpted, often resembling the delicate, curved heads of the prized Saker falcons flown in those regions. These were not just tools, they were statements of refined taste and immense cultural sophistication. This divergence in style was deeply rooted in knowledge. While European falconry often relied on tradition passed from master to apprentice, the Islamic world produced lavishly illustrated scientific treatises. Scholars like the 13th century Arab writer Momin authored detailed books on falcon medicine, training, and the precise anatomy of birds, knowledge that would slowly filter into European courts through trade and translation. So a German knight's utilitarian swivel and an Arabian prince's bejeweled hood were more than just regional preferences. They were physical expressions of two different worlds, one honed in the deep woods, the other refined in the heart of the library. A geofalcon was more than a hunting partner, it was a treasure. This magnificent Arctic hunter, cloaked in feathers of pure white or regal gray, was the ultimate prize in a noble's muse. Its immense power and breathtaking speed demanded equipment of a different class entirely. The standard jesses used for a peregrine would have been dangerously inadequate for this larger, stronger bird. A geofalcon required jesses cut from the thickest, most resilient leather, often from the tough hide of a bull. Their construction had to be flawless, as the sheer force generated by the bird's wings during takeoff could snap a weaker strap in an instant. And just as the jesses were reinforced, so too was the swivel. The delicate brass pivot used for a smaller falcon would have been bent and warped under the geofalcon's constant, powerful movements. Its swivel was a heavy-duty piece of forged iron, with larger, sturdier rings designed to absorb tremendous torque without seizing up. This was not just a tool for preventing tangles, it was a critical piece of safety engineering for a creature of immense physical force. The final piece of specialized gear was the gauntlet, A falconer flying a gyfalcon did not wear a simple glove, they wore a shield. This gauntlet was significantly larger and thicker than any other, with reinforced padding running from the fingertips all the way to the elbow. When a gyfalcon landed, its powerful talons exerted a grip that could easily crush the bones in an unprotected arm. The gauntlet had to feel like an unyielding tree limb to the bird, a stable and secure perch that could bear its weight and power without flinching. This entire suite of heavy-duty equipment underscores a simple truth. The gyfalcon was in a league of its own. So valued was this Arctic sovereign that it became a currency of kings. A gift of a white gyfalcon from one monarch to another was not a simple present. It was a profound political gesture, a symbol of respect, alliance, and immense wealth. To receive such a bird was to be entrusted with a living piece of the frozen north, a creature whose very equipment whispered of the power required to hold a piece of the sky itself. The silent language of leather and metal did not vanish with the Middle Ages. It was meticulously recorded in the pages of illuminated manuscripts and woven into the very fabric of noble life. For a modern historian, these artistic depictions are not mere decoration. They are a living archive. The most famous of these sources is the 13th century manuscript, De Arte Venandi cum Avibus, written by none other than the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II himself. Its pages are filled with breathtakingly accurate illustrations of falconers in action. You can see the exact way the jesses are tied to a hawk's legs, observe the length of the leash as a bird is carried to the field, and even discern the distinct shape of different hood styles perched on falcon heads. This was not an artist's impression. It was a scientific document, a visual guide to the art by one of its greatest masters. The precision in these images allows modern reenactors and craftsmen to recreate this equipment with astonishing accuracy, right down to the knot on a jess. But the record extends beyond the page. Grand tapestries that once hung in cold stone castles to retain warmth also tell a story of the hunt. Woven into these colorful scenes, you can spot the cadge being carried by its attendant, the birds sitting in a solemn row. You can see the moment a falconer swings the lure in a wide, enticing circle, the leather cords clearly visible. These artworks freeze moments of daily life that written records might overlook. They show us how the heavy gauntlet was actually worn on the fist, and how the swivel connected the jesses to the leash during transport. Every stitch in a tapestry, every brushstroke in a manuscript, confirms the reality of the tools we have been exploring. They are a direct window into a world where this intricate partnership was not just a sport, but a celebrated way of life, preserved in vibrant color and gold leaf for us to rediscover. That same language of leather and metal is now being spoken again in workshops and museums around the world. A dedicated community of historical reenactors and traditional falconers has taken on the challenge of recreating medieval equipment, not as museum replicas, but as fully functional gear for modern hawks and falcons. This is more than a hobby, it is a form of experimental archaeology, a hands-on journey to understand the daily reality of a medieval falconer. The first and greatest challenge lies in the materials. You cannot simply buy medieval deerskin from a modern tannery. Modern leather is often tanned with chemicals that leave residues toxic to birds. To be authentic and safe, these craftsmen must seek out vegetable tanned leathers, processed with natural barks and oils just as they were centuries ago. They work with the same types of metal, hand-forging swivels from iron and polishing bells from sheet brass. Every stitch is sewn by hand, every hood molded painstakingly over a wooden block. There is no room for shortcuts, because a bird's safety depends on the integrity of every piece. What do these craftsmen discover when they use the gear they have so carefully made? They gain a profound appreciation for the medieval mind. Swinging a heavy lure on braided silk cords, they feel the strain in their shoulder and understand why the lure's weight and balance were so critical. Tying an Aylmery jess onto a restless bird's leg, they learn firsthand why that specific knot was such a revolutionary design, a perfect balance of security and gentleness. They experience the quiet trust required to place a leather hood over a bird's head, a moment where centuries of distance collapse into a single, shared act of partnership. This revival is not about nostalgia. It is a quest for truth, proving that the elegant solutions of the medieval falconer were not just artistic, but deeply, fundamentally right. By working with these tools, they are having a conversation with the past, one perfectly tied knot at a time. Hollywood has painted a dramatic, but often deeply flawed, picture of this ancient art. One of the most persistent myths is that the hood was a cruel instrument of permanent blindness. We have already seen how it served as a tool for calm, but the misconception runs even deeper. A falcon was never meant to be kept hooded for long stretches of time. The moment the bird was settled in a quiet environment, like its familiar muse, the hood was carefully removed. Its use was tactical, reserved for the chaotic moments of travel and the tense anticipation just before a hunt, when the bird needed to conserve its energy and focus. To leave a hood on for hours would be a form of sensory deprivation, causing immense stress and defeating its entire purpose. Another common cinematic error involves the handling of the birds themselves. You will often see an actor casually holding a falcon on their bare hand or forearm. This is a recipe for disaster. Those powerful talons are not just sharp, they exert a crushing pressure designed to kill prey instantly. Without the protection of the heavy gauntlet, a single, nervous grip from the bird would slice tendons to the bone. The glove was not optional, it was as essential as the jesses themselves. And then there is the portrayal of their living quarters. The image of a magnificent falcon shut inside a tiny, barren cage is pure fiction. As we explored, a proper mews was a spacious, well-ventilated sanctuary designed for the bird's physical and mental health. Confinement in a small cage would have broken a falcon's spirit, damaged its irreplaceable flight feathers, and led to rapid physical decline. A noble would never treat such a valuable asset with such ignorance. These filmic shortcuts might create a compelling visual, but they fundamentally misrepresent the sophisticated partnership and the profound respect for the bird's nature that define true falconry. The real story, woven into the careful design of each piece of equipment, reveals a relationship built not on domination, but on a deep and mutual understanding. The core tools of the medieval falconer were not just inventions, they were profound discoveries in animal behavior. Centuries of observation and partnership crystallized into a system so perfectly adapted to the raptor's mind and body that its fundamental principles have never been improved upon, only refined. The jesses you see on a modern falconer's bird are still tied with the same secure, non-constricting loops perfected in the Middle Ages. The modern leash is still a long cord of braided leather or durable nylon, serving that same beautiful contradiction of providing safety while allowing dignified movement. And at the end of that leash, you will still find a swivel, its simple, brilliant pivot of 2 rings unchanged in its essential function. It remains the only way to grant a bird freedom of movement without the deadly risk of a tangled leash. This is not a lack of innovation, but a testament to achieving a kind of perfection. Medieval craftsmen and falconers solved the core problems of the partnership with such elegant clarity that their solutions became timeless. The hood, perhaps the most psychologically sophisticated tool of all, is still used in the exact same way today. Its purpose is still to provide a sanctuary of calm for a creature of overwhelming sight, to focus its immense energy for the moment of the hunt. Modern hoods may use new synthetic materials, but their shape, their fit, and their very reason for being are direct echoes from the 13th century. This endurance speaks to a deep, almost intuitive understanding of raptor nature. They observed that a bird needed to cast, so they designed a diet and a feeding block to facilitate it. They understood that a broken feather could ground a hunter, so they mastered the delicate art of imping. Every piece of equipment was a response to a fundamental need, a biological or psychological truth about the bird itself. That is why this medieval toolkit remains the bedrock of the modern sport. It is a system built not on forcing the bird to conform to human will, but on aligning human methods with the innate nature of the raptor. The legacy of the medieval falconer is not locked away in a museum case. It is flying on the fist of a falconer today, a continuous, living thread connecting our world to a time when the sky was a kingdom, and a gloved hand was its closest ally. The falconer's toolkit was a symphony of necessity, where every piece played its part in the grand performance of the hunt. From the humble jest that offered a secure handshake to the complex hood that provided a sanctuary of calm, each item was a vital link in a chain of trust. The leash and swivel created a safe tether of movement, the bells sang a song of location, and the lure promised a certain reward. Even the heavy gauntlet and the portable cadge were not mere accessories, but essential shields and stages for this partnership. Without this intricate language of leather and metal, the breathtaking dance between human and bird would have been impossible. It was a system born from deep observation, a testament to a time when humanity sought not to break the wild spirit, but to join it in a shared pursuit. So the next time you see a bird of prey soaring on the wind, picture the final moment of its return. The hunt is over, the lure has been withdrawn, and the falcon descends from the sky, its flight a perfect arc of purpose. It lands with a gentle thud on the waiting gauntlet, the bells on its legs falling silent as it settles. In that quiet instant, the jesses are gathered, the hood is offered, and the ancient partnership is complete. What part of this historical mystery resonates most with you? Share your own thoughts and questions in the comments below.